Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, today I'm going to be recapping the last round of the Friday night quads held at the Holiday Inn, a weekly tournament hosted by the Georgia Chess Club. And as of now, I have a score of 1 out of 2, and going into the last round, I'm facing a kid named Kanishk Mahesh, who hasn't been having a great tournament, or great Friday night quads tournament. He's lost the first 2 games, both against Dhruva and Pawan. So he kind of needs to either draw or win to have a positive record. And by the time I lost to Dhruva, Kanishk was already waiting for the next game because, as I said in the previous recap, they need to have the game start almost back-to-back so that the tournament doesn't finish too late. So while I would have ideally wanted to, step out and maybe have a drink of water or something like that, I saw that Kanishk was already sitting at the board ready to play the next game, so I'm like, okay. My brain wasn't totally fried from the last game, so I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and just get the game over with and see how it goes. So, as I mentioned, I'm playing a kid named Kanishk Mahesh. He's about, middle school age, looked like it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into the action. So, I go with e4, and Kanishk replies with c5, going to the Sicilian, knight f3, d6, and I go with my signature canal attack with bishop to b5 check. He chooses to block with the bishop. You can block with the knight too, both are playable. And after the trade, I go ahead and castle, and Kanishk goes g6, preparing to fianchetto on g7. I go c3 to prepare d4. I could have played d4 right away, but I thought c3 was a little bit of a better approach. He goes bishop g7, d4, and after the trade, he plays knight c6. And after knight c3, he plays knight f6. And the drawback of how he's playing the opening Kanishk is that I've already won the opening battle, because I have what we call the snowplow, where the pawns are on e4 and d4 controlling the center. If you can get that to happen, you're often in really good shape out of the opening. And I have the opportunity to kick one of Kanishk's knights from their squares. And normally it's dangerous to have the pawns attack knights so early on when you haven't finished all your opening goals, such as castling or developing your other pieces. But so I had the option here to play either e5 or d5. I end up playing d5, which is the better move. And if you play e5, the problem is that after this sequence, you've done something called overextension, where you push a pawn too far forward and it goes close into the enemy territory. And it can become a target for the enemy pieces because it's so far advanced and it makes it harder for the other side to defend. So Kanishk can play the very simple move knight to g4. And if you count, there are 3 attackers on the e5 pawn, both of his knights and the bishop. And I only have 1 defender, so I can't magically have I can't magically have 2 defenders on 1 move. It doesn't work like that. So I'll basically end up losing the pawn, not something you want to do. So that's why e5 is not a good move, but rather d5, because I have it supported by my e4 pawn and the center remains closed. So after knight e5, I trade knights with him and I double his e-pawns too, so that's an additional benefit. And I go with queen e2, just a slow developing move, preparing to develop the bishop next and connect rooks. Here he castles. I go h3, a slow move, not really trying to accomplish anything, just seeing what he'll do next. He goes rook a to d8, bishop e3, Kanishk saves the a-pawn with a6, and I blunder it with f4. It looked like a logical move to me because I'm trying to activate the rook by he taking me, and I will have the rook being on a half-open file. And if he doesn't take, let's say he plays like b5 or something, even here you can like push f5. Well, not now because b4. But if the pawn hadn't been taken, the white pawn could go to f5 and pressure black's king side a bit. So that was why I played f4. But the problem is that because I pushed h3 a couple moves earlier, I created a color weakness. I weakened the dark squares, which means that Kanishk here could play the move knight h5. And the issue with knight h5 is that he's threatening a fork on g3, and he's attacking my f4 pawn. So I have to deal with the fork on g3 with a move such as like queen f3, and he has the option here to just trade, and they can get rid of my dark squared bishop, and then Kanishk can play a move like queen d6, in which case he just has a more pleasant position here with a very active bishop because of the dark squared weaknesses. So that was what he should have done. But instead, Kanishk plays e takes f4, and after bishop takes, he plays b5, threatening to go b4. So I just stopped that altogether with a3. And here he plays queen b7, trying to reinforce b4 with the queen. And I was thinking about allowing it because, let's say, okay, rook ac1. Let's say I just play a random move. If he were to play b4 now, I would just trade. And then the a pawn is left hanging at the end of the variation. So I would just be winning a pawn here. So after queen b7, rook ac1, he doesn't play b4, he plays rook f to e8. I go b4 myself, that way he doesn't ever play that move. But it's kind of an inaccuracy. He goes knight h5, way too late. He should have played it when I played f4. And I tuck my bishop on h2, where it continues to guard the dark squared weaknesses. Here Kanishk plays the queen b6 check. It's kind of a useless check, it doesn't really accomplish anything. So after I go to the corner, Kanishk makes a mistake. He plays e6, and I have already a way better position. One thing I can do is play d6 just to advance my pawn. It's now a passed pawn, but I was worried if what I would do after e5, where he interferes with my defense of the pawn. And this is the concept of overextension. I can't really defend the d pawn anymore, so yeah, d6 isn't great here. I play the best move. I play queen f3, threatening to take on f7, and he plays rook f8 to defend. And I have the option of going d6 now, but the difference here is that if he goes e5, Engine says to go bishop g1, and the difference here is that if the queen were to take, I have bishop c5, and I would just be winning the exchange. So because of him moving the rook to f8, I have this option. And if needed, I can play e5 to back up the pawn even more. So I should have played d6 here. I instead go g4, trying to get a little bit aggressive. And after he plays knight f6, I play bishop e5, and I lose my momentum, and it's now back to equality. He plays knight d7, and I was actually pretty happy with this position over the board. I liked the fact that I got rid of his dark squared bishop, defending his king. But the engine says it's just about equal. So I play queen g3. He plays queen b8, trying to go into an endgame, and the engine just says to trade queens and go for the endgame. But I see that I have some potential with my open rook and the queen being close to the king, and maybe I could reroute the knight to the king side somehow, I don't know. So I decide to decline the queen trade and go queen h4. But now he plays queen e5, and black's already starting to get the upper edge here. And I go rook f3, preparing to double rooks. And here Kanishk makes a mistake with knight f6, and now it's even. And at this point, we each have about like 7 minutes on time. In the opening phase, we were both blitzing out Sicilian theory, and then we started to think towards the middle game. And here we're both about 7-8 minutes on time. And I notice here that he's attacking my e4 pawn twice, and I was thinking about defending it, or I was thinking about playing rook cf1, which is the best move, but I was worried that it'd hang the pawn, and this it does hang the pawn, but the engine just wants you to go for a draw. It wants you to go rook f7, wild stuff. If the rook has to take in order to not lose, and the engine just says to trade rooks. But then you might be thinking, wait, doesn't this just lose a knight? Like, doesn't matter how black takes the knight. What I didn't see is that white has a perpetual. White can check with the queen, and wherever the king cannot escape the cascade of checks coming. So if king f8, I would just go back. If he tries to run, he can't run because my queen has the ability to check everywhere. King h6, I would just go here. King g7, queen e7, and he's just stuck in an endless loop of checks. I didn't see that, so that's why I didn't go rook cf1. Also, I could have taken the knight first and then played f takes e6, and assuming he didn't want to damage his kingside structure, he would play queen e6, in which case I would just trade like this, and we would just go into the queen endgame. And this is dead drawn as well. So I could have had going for the perpetual check or going into the drawn queen endgame. That was what the engine recommended. But I instead go with g5, and he plants his knight into h5. Thought my pawn on g5 would pose as a bit of a nuisance for him. So now I go rook c to f1. It's a bit late. He goes rook c8, attacking the knight, but I don't defend it right away. I go queen f2, triple attacking the pawn on f7. He plays rook c7, and here now it's back to equality. He wondered his advantage. We each had about like 4 minutes in this position, so can't really blame us here. And I go ahead and play d6. He can't take the knight here because I would just mate him like this. I would just be crashing through. So he plays queen e6, and I was happy after d6 because I can hop my knight into d5, where it attacks the rook, and I just put it in a very active square, and I thought I was doing quite well here, even though the engine says otherwise. He played rook b7, I go queen d4 check, king g8, and with like 3 minutes, I kind of wanted to make the game simpler so I could not spend as much time thinking and have the moves be sort of more intuitive and coming to mind quicker. So I play knight f6. That way it's like the game's simpler. If I had more time, I probably wouldn't have played this move, but I was worried about the time scramble. I was anticipating the time scramble. I'd want the position to be simpler, so I played knight f6. He takes the knight, of course, because if he doesn't and goes on the diagonal, then he's just cooked, because I'm just going to be taking his knight with check, discovered attack, and I would just be completely winning. So he obviously takes, and here I make a blunder. What happens is I accidentally touched the rook. Probably I was going to play rook f6, but then I realized it's a bad move. But the thing is it's touch move, and that states that if you touch a piece, you have to move it. And I touched the rook for like a split second and let go, hoping he wouldn't see it. But he did see it, and he said that I have to move the rook, which is correct. I should. He was very receptive, so I accept my fate, and I take with the rook, and I hang the h3 pawn. I see that right away, and now black's completely winning. He plays queen g4. We each had like 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes at this point. We're both moving at the relatively the same pace. Goes queen h4, king g2, queen g5, king h2, queen h4, king h2, and I thought he was going for like a draw here. I even offered him a draw, but he said no, because it seemed for a second that he was going for a perpetual, probably because he didn't have time to calculate how the game should properly end. But then instead he switches gears and goes on the offensive, plays rook d7, I go queen f2, he goes rook f to d8 to threaten to pin my queen. I move it over, I move the queen over. That way if he were to go rook d2, I would block with my rook. But this doesn't work. I should have moved the other rook, but it's still losing. Doesn't really matter. Because he plays queen h4 check here, I move the g1, rook d1 check, rook f1, and after queen takes f6, I resign because I can't take his queen because I'm pinned and I just lost a rook, and there's no way I'm going to save the game. So I officially resign against Kanishk Mahesh, and not a good way to end the quad. We had great momentum with the first game, but after this loss of game 2 and the fact that there was like no break going into game 3, I think maybe that's why I lost. And also because of the time control, there's no increment and it's not enough time, so you make sort of hasty decisions. But either way, take a look at the accuracy. It's not the greatest game, 79.7 and 89.5, so Kanishk actually played better even though he gave me the advantage in the middle game. But so, yeah, just kind of bummed out that I lost, and stuff happens. And at the time of recording the video, I recorded a day later. This recap a day later. The rating results have come out. They're pretty quick at posting these. They post it at midnight. The day at they posted at midnight, like Friday midnight. So I will be linking the rating results in the description so you guys can see it. And I was actually kind of worried that I wouldn't be above 1,800 because I lost 2 games in a row. But I actually ended up being above 1,800, as you will see if you click the link. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys for watching. If you like content like this, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button below. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. And yeah, have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.